You know that really eerie feeling you get during a total solar eclipse?
Oh, yeah. It's so weird.
Right. Like if you've ever actually experienced one, it is completely surreal. The moon just slides right in front of the sun, and suddenly, I mean, right in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon or whatever, the temperature just
Yeah, it
drops.
gets instantly cold.
And the birds actually stop singing. It's this massive cosmic event that plunges the Earth into this sudden darkness. It's almost like a thunderclap, but in a clear blue sky. And you're just standing there, basically just waiting for the light to come back.
Well, it's deeply unsettling, I think,
Mm.
because you are suddenly stripped of your most basic guarantee, right? The
The-
familiar light,
Yeah.
the actual thing you structure your entire day around, it's just gone.
Yeah.
And you realize you're completely at the mercy of forces that are, vastly larger than yourself.
Exactly. And so the reason I bring this up is because geopolitical analysts are basically screaming right now that we are living through a global version of that exact phenomenon.
A geopolitical eclipse.
Yeah, exactly. The lights of the 1945 world order have basically gone out, and everyone on the global stage is kind of just panicking in the dark.
Which is terrifying, but also, fascinating to watch.
Right. So our deep dive today is about unpacking this really massive, fascinating breakdown of what experts are now calling a rudderless world.
Right, because there's no one steering.
Exactly. The old system is collapsing, the new one hasn't formed yet, and right now there is literally no captain steering the globe. So for everyone listening, our mission today is to try and find an anchor for you in all this chaos.
Yeah, to kind of map out what's actually happening.
Right. And we are looking at a highly polarized chessboard today, involving figures from the US to Europe to the Middle East. And I just want to say up front, whether you lean left, right, center, whatever, our goal here is strictly to unpack the raw mechanics of power based on the strategic analysis in our source material.
Yeah, we aren't picking sides here.
No, not at all. We are just looking at how the pieces are moving, just reporting on the analysis.
Which really is the only way to understand a transitional phase like this.
Yeah.
You have to strip away the ideology and just look at the structural realities on the ground.
For sure. So let's start with the broken steering wheel of the ship we're all on.
Good place to start.
The source material points all the way back to 1945, the end of World War II. The U.S. and its allies, they build the United Nations, they establish the World Bank, and they essentially write the rules for the modern world.
Right. This is the era of the Pax Americana, or the American peace.
Right.
And you have to remember, the architects of this system, mostly the Americans, but alongside the other Allied victors, they looked at the smoldering devastation of 2 world wars and decided, okay, we have to build a really rigid system of global governance.
To freeze everything in place.
Exactly. The goal was to freeze the balance of power so that global war could literally never happen again.
But I mean, the problem is we are now trying to govern the incredibly complex multipolar world of 2026 with a system that was designed 80 years ago.
Yeah, it's showing its age.
It is. Reading through this analysis, I just kept thinking about it, like trying to run a modern, AI-driven global economy on a Windows 95 operating system.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. It's glitchy. It keeps crashing. And instead of upgrading the OS, the global establishment is just basically clicking ignore on all the error messages.
Well, yeah, because the architecture is entirely obsolete. And
Yeah.
the source actually provides this glaring statistic to show you just how bad that glitch really is.
Oh, the UN Security Council thing.
Yes. So look at the UN Security Council, which is supposedly the ultimate authority on global security, right?
Right.
The United Kingdom and France still hold permanent veto-wielding seats, meaning any single veto from them can stop a global resolution dead in its tracks.
Because they were massive colonial empires back in 1945.
Right, but look at the math today. Look at India. India is the number 3 power in the world right now.
Yeah, 1.5 billion people.
Exactly. A massive, booming economy, enormous technological capabilities. And yet, in the halls of the UN, India has the exact same amount of structural voting power as the tiny island nation of Malta.
Which has a population of what, like 500,000 people?
Something like that.
I mean, no disrespect to Malta, but that is just absurd.
It's totally broken.
And when you frame it like that, it completely explains why the Global South, which, our source reminds us, is 6.5 billion of the world's 8 billion people why they are actively rejecting this system.
Right, they see the rigged game.
Yeah, they are looking at this Windows 95 architecture, realizing they are totally locked out of the admin privileges,
Yeah.
and they are basically just deciding to log off entirely.
And the thing is, the United States recognizes that this system is beyond repair, too.
Right.
The analysis notes that the U.S. has been fundamentally changing its posture for years now. It started kind of subtly, but it's now the defining reality of global politics. The U.S. is pulling back.
Stepping down as the world's policeman.
Exactly. They are shifting focus strictly to three core priorities: defending the U.S. homeland, securing the Western Hemisphere, and containing China. That's it.
Okay, but if the U.S. is stepping back to just focus on its own backyard in China, who is stepping into the void?
Well, that's the multi-trillion-dollar question.
Right, because that retreat has to be triggering absolute panic in places that, relied on American protection for decades.
Oh, total panic. You know the saying, nature abhors a vacuum?
Sure.
Well, geopolitics weaponizes it. The void left by the U.S. retreat has really highlighted this dangerous difference in how rival nations operate. It is essentially a war between the clock and the calendar.
The clock and the calendar.
Yeah. The West is fighting the clock, while a new coalition is using the calendar.
Okay, yes, this was probably the most fascinating insight in the material for me. Enter the CRINC coalition.
Right? Crank.
China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. And our sources point out, they aren't best friends.
No, not at all.
They don't have this formalized one attack all treaty like NATO does, but they are this highly cooperative syndicate, basically bound together by a shared desire to dismantle the West.
And what makes them so formidable isn't just their combined military or economic weight. It's actually how they perceive time.
Okay, wait, let me push back on that for a second.
Hey, wait.
Because there is that old, really chilling quote attributed to the Taliban during the Afghan war.
Oh, I know the one.
Yeah, they used to say to the Americans, you have the watches, we have the time.
Exactly.
So why is the West in such a frantic, breathless rush right now, while these autocracies are suddenly so content to just sit back and chill?
It all comes down to the mechanics of the election cycle trap.
The election cycle.
Right. Western democracies are structurally wired for short-term panic. Just think about the U.S. House of Representatives.
They have an election every 2 years.
Every 2 years. Leaders in London or Paris or Washington, they are constantly terrified of losing power, so they need quick wins.
Right, fast results.
Fast results, immediate economic boosts, anything to show voters they're doing a good job today. They govern in 2 to 4 year sprints.
And autocrats don't have midterms.
Exactly. Take Xi Jinping in China. The source describes him as the most powerful man on earth right now, and significantly, the laughing third party who's just watching Western chaos unfold.
Because he has a mandate for life.
Right. Putin doesn't worry about genuine opposition at the ballot box. The Ayatollahs in Iran, they aren't checking their daily polling data.
Right.
They possess what analysts call strategic patience. They can afford to play a 20-year game. They can absorb short-term losses for long-term gains, while Western leaders are sweating over a 20-month game.
And this short-term panic is actually tearing the West apart from the inside. Like, the analysis zeroes in on Europe's internal struggles, showing how this fear of change is driving voters straight to the extreme.
Oh, absolutely. We can see the mechanics of this in the collapse of the political center.
Right.
Think back 10 years ago. Emmanuel Macron's movement in France was heralded as the shining example of centrist politics. It was the future.
Yeah, the centrist dream.
But the center has fundamentally failed to provide answers to the massive structural questions of our time, specifically regarding mass migration and just severe economic stagnation.
So because the establishment can't provide a credible roadmap for the future, voters are just trying to find safety in the past.
Well, yeah. The source actually quotes a Canadian politician who noted, "Nostalgia is not a strategy."
That's a great line.
It is. Yet nostalgia is becoming the most powerful political force in the West right now. And the most vivid example in the text is East Germany.
Oh, this detail was staggering to me.
It's crazy, right?
It really is. If you look back at the fall of the Berlin Wall, East Germany was fiercely left-wing. It was driven by this progressive dream of a new, unified democratic future.
Right.
But today, that exact same region is swinging radically to the far right. They are throwing all their weight behind the AfD, which is this heavily nationalist anti-immigrant party.
But you have to understand, the underlying mechanism there isn't necessarily just a sudden ideological conversion to fascism.
Right.
It's actually a desperate, fearful desire for order. When the current democratic leadership cannot offer physical or economic security, voters look backwards to a time, even an authoritarian time, that felt managed.
That felt predictable.
Exactly.
Hmm.
They are voting for a past that feels safe because the future feels so chaotic.
So we have Western democracies panicking about elections and turning inward, while autocracies are exercising this strategic patience. Let's map how this actually plays out on the global battlefield.
Let's do it.
Because the source makes it really clear that this short-term thinking is turning regional conflicts into one massive interconnected web.
Right, the days of isolated regional wars, those are completely over. The source draws a direct causal line connecting the battlefields of Europe to Asia to the Middle East.
The proxy lab in Ukraine is a perfect example of this.
Yes.
Russia is bombarding Ukrainian infrastructure, but the mechanism behind that bombardment is entirely multinational.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Like, they are using Iranian-designed drones, they are firing North Korean artillery shells, and the entire Russian war machine is just being quietly sustained by Chinese technology and economic back channels.
Which is, again, a textbook application of China's strategic patience.
Right. They operate in the shadows.
Exactly. They avoid openly declaring war on the West, which obviously protects their own economy, but they ensure Russia and Iran remain viable enough to just bleed Western resources.
And that bleeding directly impacts U.S. military readiness for, say, a conflict over Taiwan.
Oh, 100%.
Let's break down the math on that Taiwan warning, actually, because it centers on what the source calls asymmetrical warfare.
This is a crucial point for listeners to understand.
Right. So the United States is currently burning through its most advanced military stockpiles in the Middle East.
Yeah.
They are firing highly sophisticated Patriot missile defense systems just to protect shipping lanes from Iranian proxies, like the Houthis in Yemen.
And we really need to look at the financial disparity of asymmetrical warfare here. The Houthis are launching these drones that might cost, what, a few $1,000s to assemble?
Literally parts you could buy commercially.
Exactly.
Eh.
And to shoot that cheap drone down, the United States is firing a Patriot missile that costs roughly $4 million.
$4 million for one missile.
Yes. The math is just catastrophically bad for the West.
So China doesn't even need to engage us directly right now.
Yeah.
They just have to sit back and watch us bankrupt our own missile reserves, shooting down cheap drones over the Red Sea. Because every interceptor fired in the Middle East is one less missile available to defend Taiwan.
And this brings us right to the shifting axis in the Middle East.
Oh, man. Yeah.
The source makes a massive historical claim here. It argues that future historians might look back at the current conflict with Iran and declare it the exact moment the American-led world order officially died.
Really let that sink in. The exact moment it died. Because it is the moment American deterrence visibly failed.
Right.
For decades, the implicit rule of global politics was basically don't cross the United States or else.
Yeah, the big stick.
Right. But now, regional powers are looking at a U.S. that is stretched incredibly thin, it's politically distracted, and it's openly stating its desire to pull back.
And when the neighborhood policeman announces he's retiring and just stops walking the beat, well, the residents have to find a new way to protect their homes, right?
Yeah.
This dynamic has birthed what is honestly the most shocking new alliance mentioned in this deep dive.
Oh, the Saudi pact.
Yes. Because U.S. protection is no longer viewed as a total guarantee, Saudi Arabia, led by Crown Prince MBS, has largely just bypassed Washington. They've struck a new security pact with Pakistan and Turkey.
Okay, hold on. Let's really think about the gravity of that for a second. Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Turkey.
Yep.
Is Pakistan actually going to risk a nuclear exchange with Iran just to protect Saudi oil fields? I mean, that sounds like a remarkably fragile alliance.
It sounds totally fragile until you look at what each party actually brings to the table.
Okay, unpack that.
So, Saudi Arabia has near limitless wealth, but they have a very vulnerable military.
Right.
Turkey possesses the second largest standing conventional army in NATO.
Wow, okay.
And Pakistan provides the ultimate trump card, a nuclear umbrella.
The nukes.
Yes. If Iran attacks Saudi Arabia, this pact ensures that conventional and nuclear powers will step in. You have an entirely new, incredibly powerful security axis forming to manage the Middle East, and the United States wasn't even invited to the ribbon cutting.
The chessboard is totally rearranging itself.
It really is.
And Israel is watching this U.S. retreat, too. So how is Prime Minister Netanyahu reacting to the fact that his primary security guarantor is literally packing up?
Well, Netanyahu is doubling down on a strategy of ultimate self-reliance. Domestically, he's playing this Mr. Security card to fend off political challengers.
Like the former military chiefs in his own cabinet.
Exactly. He's projecting that only he can keep the country safe in a rudderless world.
The analysis actually points out that he is actively defying Donald Trump's plans for Gaza just to project independence. He wants to show he isn't taking marching orders from Washington anymore. Instead, he's leaning heavily into a relationship with India's Prime Minister Modi.
Because he's trying to construct an entirely new economic and security axis. Basically, an alliance stretching from India up through Israel and into Europe via Cyprus and Greece.
Wow.
Everyone on the global stage is hedging their bets right now. They're building their own lifeboats because they see the American ships sailing away.
So, if everyone in the Middle East is hedging their bets because the U.S. is distracted, what happens when that distraction reaches a fever pitch?
Well, that's when things get truly dangerous.
Right, because the analysis suggests the immediate trigger for a global explosion might not come from Beijing or Moscow. It might come directly from domestic U.S. politics.
Specifically, the upcoming midterm elections.
Yes. This is where we see domestic priorities completely hijacking foreign policy.
Yeah, and there's a fascinating historical irony at play here.
Tell me about that.
Usually, when the U.S. president is in their second term, they focus heavily on foreign policy to build this grand historical legacy, right?
Right.
Because they never have to face the voters again.
But the analysis points out that Donald Trump's approach is a complete reversal of that tradition.
A total 180.
He is hyper-focused on how foreign events impact the domestic midterm elections in order to maintain absolute control of Congress.
Exactly.
So my question to you is, if a president needs a quick, desperate domestic win to save an election, how reckless can things actually get on the global stage?
Well, the source explicitly tells us to think the unthinkable.
Okay.
Let's walk through the strategic mechanism here. To secure Republican votes in a really tight midterm, the administration desperately needs gas prices to drop at the pump.
Because it's the single most visible economic indicator to the average voter.
Exactly. Right. So how do you force a massive drop in global gas prices in a matter of weeks?
You flood the global market with crude oil.
Right. And the fastest way to achieve that might be making a very hasty, very ugly diplomatic deal with Iran to lift sanctions and get Iranian oil flowing freely again.
Oh, wow.
The administration might be willing to completely upend the security dynamics of the Middle East, angering Israel and the Saudis in the process, just to manufacture a temporary drop in gas prices right before November.
So basically, when you pull up to the pump in October and gas is suddenly $1 cheaper, the source is suggesting you shouldn't just be celebrating.
No, not at all.
You should be asking what long-term global security arrangement was just sacrificed to get you that discount.
Exactly.
But it gets even wilder. The text also outlines a potential Caribbean front.
Oh, yeah. This is perhaps the ultimate example of the wag the dog scenario where domestic politics drives global chaos.
Right.
To secure specific voter demographics, namely Latino voters in key swing states like Florida, the analysis suggests the administration might open an entirely new geopolitical front right in America's backyard.
Meaning targeting Cuba or Venezuela.
Yeah. Yes. Taking aggressive, perhaps even military action against the regimes in Havana or Caracas.
Wow.
It would fulfill the long-held geopolitical dreams of hardline figures in Washington, and it would be framed to the public as this righteous strike against communism.
But the primary mechanical utility would just be rallying a specific domestic voting bloc.
Exactly. Completely, regardless of the regional instability or the massive refugee crises it might trigger.
Man, if the U.S. is willing to burn its foreign alliances and start regional conflicts just for a Tuesday election in November, Europe must be watching this, realizing their American security blanket is already gone.
Oh, Europe is having a full-blown existential crisis.
So where does this leave Europe?
Well, they are suddenly waking up to the reality that they have to figure out how to defend themselves. They have to stand on their own 2 feet. But they are structurally and economically completely divided.
But the source throws a total wild card into the mix for Europe's future.
Yes, it does.
And it isn't about building a unified European army or something like that. It's about a surprising geographic expansion of the European Union, starting with, of all places, Iceland.
Right. And I know it sounds incredibly obscure to focus on Iceland during a massive global crisis.
Right. Why Iceland?
But geopolitics is all about dominoes, and the mechanism here is crucial. Iceland is currently holding a referendum on whether to restart EU membership talks. They want access to the broader European single market.
Okay, but how does Iceland joining the EU actually shift the balance of power?
because the Nordic economies are deeply intertwined. If Iceland joins the EU, the analysis suggests Norway might look at that integration, realize their own fishing and trade agreements are suddenly at a disadvantage, and decide they need to follow suit so they aren't left behind.
Okay, so the domino falls. And if Norway gets pulled in...
Then the pressure builds immensely on a post-Brexit United Kingdom.
Oh, interesting.
If the entire Nordic bloc joins the EU, the UK sees a massive, economically aligned group within the Union that actually shares their broader strategic goals.
So they might find a way back in.
In some capacity, yes. And this is vital for Europe's internal balance of power. Bringing the UK and the Nordics into the fold balances the scales, preventing the EU from becoming a bloc purely dominated by the Franco-German axis.
But the EU has a massive public relations problem right now, doesn't it?
Oh, massive.
Because when I was reading this section, it sounded like the EU is currently viewed by its own citizens as a giant, incredibly unpopular ATM.
That's a great way to put it.
Just this massive wealth transfer mechanism, moving money from the richer Western nations to the poorer Eastern ones, all wrapped in suffocating, unelected bureaucracy.
And that perception is the exact mechanism fueling the populist backlash and the nostalgia voting we talked about earlier.
Right.
The European economy is stagnant. It simply isn't growing compared to the US or China. The source argues that the EU desperately needs to stop being this dry, bureaucratic symbol. It needs a structural reform that respects individual nation-states and regional identities.
Rather than trying to force this top-down, homogenized federalism that voters actively despise,
Exactly.
the analyst actually issues a call to action for European leaders, and it basically comes down to communication.
Yes, the soul of Europe.
Right. He says stop relying on dry, technical economic reports, like the ones authored by Mario Draghi, to inspire people.
Right, because Mario Draghi is essentially the poster child for European technocracy. He was the president of the European Central Bank. And look, while technocrats are great at stabilizing currencies, economic reports don't win hearts and minds.
No, they don't.
The source argues that leaders need to step up to a podium and give a visionary speech about the actual soul of Europe. Where is the continent actually going? What is the destination?
Right.
Because until leaders provide a compelling emotional vision of the future, people will just keep retreating into the comfort of the past.
All right, let's kind of zoom out and synthesize this deep dive, because we have covered an immense amount of ground today.
We really have.
We are clearly living in the liminal space between two eras. The 1945 UN model, our geopolitical Windows 95, is hopelessly broken, and the global south has logged off. And into that void, autocracies like China, Russia, and Iran are using their strategic patience to simply outlast election-panicked Western democracies.
And as a result, we're seeing shocking new regional alliances, like the Saudi-Pakistan-Turkey nuclear pact, filling the power vacuum left by a retreating United States.
And we are seeing Western leaders tempted to make drastic, unthinkable moves globally just to secure their own domestic survival.
Exactly.
And so why does this matter to you listening to this right now? It matters because geopolitics isn't just an abstract theory debated in boardrooms in Geneva.
No, it hits home.
It does. Whether it's your gas prices plunging because of an ugly, hasty deal with Iran or the entire balance of power shifting in Europe, these chess moves are going to directly impact your economic future, the stability of your supply chains, and your physical safety over the next decade.
You're watching the architecture of the 21st century being built in real time. And right now, the blueprints are an absolute mess.
So we'll leave you with a final thought to mull over. We talked a lot about the defining feature of these autocracies, this CRINC coalition being their strategic patience.
Right.
While the West scrambles frantically from election to election, they are willing to wait decades, absorbing costs and hiding in the shadows to achieve their goals.
Which really raises a deeply unsettling question.
Yeah.
If they have all the time in the world and they are simply waiting,
Yeah.
what exactly are they patiently waiting for?
If the 1945 order is truly dead and the sun has been eclipsed, are we moving toward a new, peaceful, multipolar world? Or, while we are entirely distracted by midterm elections, culture wars, and cheap gas, are we simply watching the pieces get arranged on the board for a global conflict that the West is entirely too blind to see coming?
When the eclipse ends and the light finally returns, the landscape we see might be completely unrecognizable.